Hey folks, welcome back. So this week we are starting off in a slightly different location, about 45 minutes from the farm, because a guy I know has a piece of property where we're at currently, and he's actually selling it off. It was his hunting property that he would use, but he's just not able to get out as much as he once was, and so he's selling a piece of property. But back when he got it, he was originally thinking that he might put a little cabin out here, you know, a little hunting cabin, and he got a wood cook stove to put in there. But he never got around to building the cabin, but he did get the cook stove, and it has been sitting out here for a while now, and it came to my attention that he had it out here. And when I heard that he was wanting to sell the piece of property, I said, is there any chance I could get my hands on that cook stove? And he said, you know what? If you can get in there and you can haul it out, you can have it. So they're pretty close to signing the paperwork for selling the piece of property. So I said, okay, I guess it's time that I get out here and try hauling this thing out of here. Alright, well, we got it loaded. So I do need to clean up this plastic here. He didn't tell me to haul it off, but you know, it's just the right thing to do. So we're going to get that cleaned up, see if we can find any more little bits and pieces over here. I also actually did bring my little cheapo metal detector with me, and we're just going to scan over this area right in here, make sure there's no other little bits and bobs that came off from the stove and weren't attached on it and are still laying over there. Alright, well, the metal detector was a bust. I think that stove's been sitting there so long that some of the iron has kind of leached into the soil there, so you just go over and it's just going crazy. It says there's metal all over the place. Also, that thing had been sitting on a pallet, so I think there's some nails and stuff in there, and the pallet is pretty much totally gone. So I think that was some of what was setting it off as well, old nails and stuff in there. I think there's a couple things missing from it, so I'm gonna take a picture of it once we get it back to the farm, send the guy an email, ask him if those were even ever there. If he thinks they were, I may come back here. I didn't bring like a shovel or anything to dig around with. I should have, but I didn't, so I may ask him if he thinks that they had been originally there. I may come back, dig around a little bit. If he says, oh no, those weren't part of it, well then in that case we've already got everything that we could have gotten. But the stove does look to be in pretty good shape considering how long it's been out here. It does have a couple bullet holes in it that I'm very sure were not put there by the guy that had this thing, but I think they're repairable. I don't think that should be an issue. So we'll have to do a little bit of work on it and maybe find some new panels or make some new panels for a couple spots on here, but other than that, it seems to be in pretty good shape. So with that, let's get this thing out of here. All right, well, as you can see, we made it back to the farm. We still got this in the trailer here, so we didn't lose it anywhere on the way over here. So let's get this thing unloaded and we can get a little bit better look at it.
Right.
Well, as you can see, we are missing a few pieces here. So I'm gonna take a picture of this and send it to him this evening. If he knows, you know, whether this is the way he got it and he was just planning on finding some replacements, or whether maybe he took these with him, he didn't leave those out there, I don't know. Or maybe they're still out there somewhere. But I'll at least find out one way or the other. If he doesn't have them, it shouldn't be too terrible to either make some replacements or find some replacements. I think that should be doable. You know, it won't look quite exactly the same as it would have before, but we should be able to get it fairly close. I did find a little plate in there that told me the make and model and stuff of it, so I'm going to do a little research into that, see if we can find out how old this thing is, and I'll put that up on the screen here for you guys. But I'm going to go ahead and move this thing underneath the mill house here, try and keep it out of the weather a little bit. Not that it's been that well protected over the last who knows how many years, but you know, it's better late than never. Okay, so we are jumping ahead 3 days from when we were out here dropping off the cook stove, and I have some good news, and that is that I contacted the guy that I got the stove from, and he told me that he thought he had the parts I was looking for in his garage. So I swung by yesterday, I guess it was, and we were able to retrieve most of the parts that we need for the cook stove. So we got them here in the truck, so we need to unload these. Alright, so first off, we have by far the biggest piece, and this here is the damper control, which is right here in the middle. I'll try to get my head in frame. So these things adjust airflow, and there's certain mechanisms actually within the stove I found out that can control where the air is moving around, so that you get, you know, whether the stove or the oven, or whether the heat's just going straight up the flue, or you know, however you want to get it flowing through there, you can kind of adjust certain things with this part in here. Now on either side here you have some sliding doors, and these kind of allow air that's circulating around this piece of pipe going through here. So these are sort of a warming oven, where it's not going to get super hot, but you could, you know, warm stuff in there, kind of like the name implies. And this hooks onto the back here. It kind of sticks out, you know, a foot behind here off from the back of our stove. Okay, this part right here, this just connects onto the back of it, and then this connects up into our piece of pipe in here. So it's just sort of a really fancy 90 for the back. And then this piece right here is what goes on the edge here. And this is just a piece of trim that would go on the front, connects into these little bits right in there. This piece goes. This one goes on top of this part, and I think it's just sort of a way to kind of adjust how warm this little warming oven is. Then these two pieces are just supports that go on the back here to help hold the weight of this unit that goes on the back. And then this is our lid that goes on here. So I've learned a little bit more about the stove here. This area over here is actually a water reservoir, and it's like, I think 10 gallons or something like that. So it's just a way to hold water here by the stove and allow the stove to heat it up. from what I can tell, these particular stoves were manufactured sometime between the late 1800s through, I think, 1940. So we're looking at something at the range of 80 to 120 plus years old. Now you may have noticed that there's one part that I haven't brought over here, and that is our little stove inserts here. Now, the garage that this stuff was being kept in, well, let's just say it was less than organized. So I'm not totally convinced that they actually might still be in there somewhere. Now, the guy that I got it from, he seems to think that they aren't there, but I don't know. Just from looking at it, they could have been in a box right beside where we were looking around and we never would have known it. So I'm kind of holding out hope for the time being. Now, of all the parts that could be missing, I think these would probably be my favorite to not have, because I feel like it would be something that would be possibly easier to find either replacements for, or possibly get something made, manufactured, fabricated as replacements for these, because I'm thinking that maybe I could just measure the holes, and even if it wasn't from the same brand, the same make and model as this stove, I might be able to find something that would work, you know, from a different manufacturer. So I mean, I'm really hoping that he's gonna happen to come across these inserts in his garage and I'm not gonna have to worry about that, but I feel like this would be the easiest part of this stove to possibly find replacements for. Alright, so I did a little bit of work on this one off camera, and I don't think that what I was hoping was going to work is really going to be feasible for the amount that we had to do, because we got those, and those, and those. No way this is going to work for all that. We'll be trying to do windows for the rest of the year at this rate. So I think I need to come up with a different way to clean up this inner part where we got a little bit fancier of a sort of a trim inside. I need to do a little bit of research into that, see if there's a better way to do this. One option that I know of that probably would work a little bit better would be to get some sanding blocks, and what they are is sort of a foam block that has not really sandpaper but something like that, and that way when you're sanding it'll kind of mold to whatever it is that you're sanding down. So if it's a weird shape, it'll just kind of go right around it, no problem. That might work a lot better for what we're doing. It's got to work better than sandpaper. Sandpaper is just way too stiff. So anyways, I need to do a little bit of research and I'll get back with you. Alrighty folks, well, I'm gonna close out the video for this week. On Saturday, we did get over to the logger who said he could supply us with some white oak logs, and these logs are for redoing the covered bridge, because we're wanting to use some white oak for the deck boards because it's a very rot resistant wood, and that's going to be the thing that would be the hardest to replace down the road, so we want to make sure that that is good to go for a very, very long time. So we brought back some with us. We took the big equipment trailer, so we brought 5 logs back, and they aren't real big, but that's kind of good because they're a good size to work with. They're a little bit easier to put on the mill, to turn on there. You don't have to get them dead center down the middle like if you had a 28 or a 30-inch log where you just have to have it perfectly centered. These, you got a little bit of leeway in there to kind of not have it perfectly straight. So I think these should be pretty good. Now these are actually over on the other side of the creek, so the mill house is back over in that direction somewhere, so we still have to get them moved over there. We didn't want to take the trailer with all this weight across the bridge, so we're gonna have to bring the loader over here next week, pick these up, and then haul them over to the mill. Now for the windows, I've been doing a little bit of research into that, and I think that maybe the easiest thing to do will be to get some sort of a chemical paint remover, paint lifter, something of that nature, just because I think it's going to be the easiest thing for getting the paint off from kind of the trim part of the windows. I'm not super crazy about using it, but I think it's going to be the best thing, so we'll have to pick up some of that next week. And then also I think I've got some other odds and ends of stuff that I'll be wanting to do next week as well, so that's sort of a rough idea of what'll be for next video. So as always, I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you next time.